Grand Admiral Voxel Tassar of the Unified Galactic Council adjusted the stiff ceremonial collar around his neck and gazed out the panoramic window of his flagship, the inevitable Conquest. The stars scattered across the void looked like little, more than dust motes from this vantage point. Insignificant, harmless. Much like how he had once regarded the species from that dull blue-green world tucked in the spiral arm of some otherwise forgettable galaxy. "How long until the council convenes?" he asked, not bothering to turn. His aide, a slender Proxian named LRA, was, as always, precisely 3 steps behind him. Always. He had measured. 17 minutes and 26 seconds, Grand Admiral, she replied, her voice carrying that peculiar melodic cadence unique to Proxians, like wind chimes being slowly strangled. "The emissary from Sector 7 requests a private audience before the session." Voxel snorted, a sound that launched a spray of faintly glowing spores from his nasal vents. They sparkled momentarily before fading into the scrubbed air. "I bet he does. Let me guess. Another appeal to ease the quarantine protocols?" "Yes, sir." "Where, sir?" "Denied. If they wanted favorable trade terms, they shouldn't have been caught sneaking Earth media into the sacred zones." He finally turned, his 4 eyes blinking in a sequence, top to bottom, left to right. A gesture his kind used when mildly entertained. "Did you know, LRA, that before the awareness protocols, some species genuinely believed humans were harmless?" LRA's facial tendrils coiled inward, the Proxian equivalent of a skeptical brow raise. "That seems unlikely, sir." "Oh, it's absolutely true. Jax Murdoch, that security officer from the First Contact Initiative, he spent 3 months convincing the DL ambassador that humans didn't rip out their enemies' hearts to gain strength. 3 months. And do you know what happened after that elaborate performance? No, sir. The DL launched an assault on a human colony. And guess what those hairless primates did to the first wave of troops? LRA's voice dipped into a whisper. They didn't. They absolutely did. Carved out their hearts and put them on display, not because they believed in strength rituals. They just wanted to make a point. Voxel let out a deep, hollow laugh that echoed against the sleek obsidian walls of the observation deck. That's humans for you. They can't even stick to their own denials. The ship's comm system chimed in. "Grand Admiral, the Pax Directive envoys have arrived early. They are requesting immediate clearance." Voxel's upper left eye gave a small twitch. The Pax Directive, always so aggressively on time, it bordered on offensive. Grant them access to Waiting Chamber B. Offer refreshments, but avoid anything sedative. Last time they detected calming agents, they filed a formal complaint over 17,000 pages long. "Yes, Grand Admiral." As the transmission ended, Voxel moved toward his personal grooming station. Mechanized arms extended, polishing the plates of his exoskeleton. The mirror-like surface reflected his face, the proud slope of his mandibles, the symmetrical trim of his sensory bristles, and the noble purple streaks that marked his bloodline. "You know what really bothers me, LRA? It's not that humans are physically intimidating. They're not. It's not their technology. Most of it's borrowed or stolen from civilizations they stumbled across. It's not even their combat strategy, though. Frustratingly, that is highly effective. Then what is it, sir? It's their inability to grasp their place in the order of things. The grooming complete, he strode toward the exit, his 4 legs moving with the grace of someone who knew both the length of his limbs and the weight of his title. Every species we've ever encountered has eventually accepted the hierarchy, the structure the Unified Galactic Council has maintained for 23,000 years. But humans? 3 centuries after joining, they're still asking questions. Why? Who made that rule? And my personal favorite? Says who? LRA followed closely, datapad clutched to her chest like armor. The council meeting agenda indicates that Representative Tamara Jones will be addressing the assembly today. Voxel stopped so suddenly LRA nearly walked into the back of his armored frame. What? That wasn't on the schedule. She was supposed to be on Earth for their absurd Independence Day festivities. She canceled, sir. Her topic is listed. As proposed amendments to the non-intervention protocols, Section 47B. If Voxel had possessed blood vessels capable of bursting, several would have done so at that moment. Instead, Thespines along his back stiffened and began to glow an alarming shade of orange. Section 40B, the one that prevents them from offering military aid to non-console worlds they want to change. That, yes, sir, the proposal has been co-signed by representatives from 16 other species. Let me guess, the Arcturians, the Vega Collective, the Rigelian Technocracy. Yes, sir, all of Earth's trading. Partners Voxel resumed walking, but faster now, his ceremonial armor clicking against the polished floor. This is exactly what I mean. LRA give them an inch of space-time, and they will take a light year when we first encountered them. Do you know what? They were killing each other over imaginary lines on their own planet. We gave them unified government interstellar travel medical advancements beyond their comprehension, and how doth they repay us by questioning everything breaking protocols? And now this blatant power grab, they entered the transport tube that would take them to the council chambers as the doors sealed and the gravity shifted to accommodate their descent. Lyra finally asked the question that had been bothering her since her assignment to the Grand Admiral 3 cycles ago. Sir, if humans are so troublesome, why didn't the council simply eliminate them when they were discovered? It's been done with other problematic species. The transport tube fell silent except for the soft hum of anti-gravity technology. When Voxel spoke again, his voice had lost its bombastic quality. We tried the doors opened to reveal the anti-chamber to the Grand Council Hall, but neither of them moved Operation Stellar Mercy before your time, before most living beings, time except for the council elders and a few of us who were there. 3 separate extinction-level events perfectly disguised as natural disasters, an asteroid, a supervolcano, and a targeted solar flare. Lara's facial tentacles went completely still, and Westhay survived all 3. The asteroid. They detected it early and diverted it. Earth's controversial amendment. The volcano, they evacuated millions and developed atmospheric scrubbers within months. The solar flare, somehow. They'd already built a planetary shield system claiming it was for space debris, but the truly terrifying part, they never realized the events were coordinated. They celebrated their survival as proof of their resilience, their ingenuity. He stepped out of the transport tube, his voice dropping to a near whisper. After the 3rd failure, the council voted to shift strategies. If we couldn't eliminate them, we would integrate them, control them, study them, and that's worked. LRA asked, hurrying to keep up. Until recently, yes, but this amendment proposal, he trailed off. As they approached the massive doors of the council chamber, the intricate carvings depicted the unified history of the galaxy's elder races, conspicuously absent. Was any mention of Earth? Sir, LRA said hesitantly. What would happen if the amendment passes? Warboxel replied. Simply, maybe not immediately, but eventually, humans have this concept they call the domino effect. One small change leads to another, then another, until everything falls. They will help one non-council world, then another. They will form alliances, build coalition forces. The outlying systems that have been grumbling about council authority will suddenly have a powerful ally. The doors began to part, revealing the vast amphitheater beyond. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in concentric rings around a central speaking platform. The murmur of voices, translation devices, and thought projectors created a background hum. Like an agitated hive, stay close, Voxel instructed. And whatever happens, remember, humans lie. They smile when they should snarl. They extend hands that should be holding weapons. Representative Jones, in particular, has perfected the art of saying one thing while meaning another entirely. They entered the chamber just as the council elder, an ancient Meridian whose actual name was unpronounceable to most species, began the formal opening statements. Voxel took his place in the inner ring reserved for the highest-ranking military and governmental officials. From his position, He could see Representative Tamara Jones sitting among the Earth delegation. Unlike most species who dressed to impress or intimidate, Jones wore a simple blue suit with minimal ornamentation, just a small pin showing Earth and its moon. Her hair was pulled back in a severe style that Voxel knew was meant to help other species read her expressions more easily. A calculated move like everything humans did and so. Welcome all representatives to this 12,247th session of the Unified Galactic Council. The elder was saying, his translator converting his harmonic speech patterns into the standard galactic tongue. We have several matters of importance to discuss today, but first, at the request of 16 member worlds we recognize, Representative Tamara Jones of Earth. A murmur ran through the chamber. As Jones stood and made her way to the central platform, Voxel noticed how many eyes followed her movement, some with curiosity, others with obvious concern. The humans had been making allies. It seemed distinguished members of the council. Jones began, her voice clear and carrying none of the nervousness a junior species should display in this setting. I come before you today not to disrupt, but to strengthen the bonds that hold our galactic community together. Here it comes, Voxel muttered to LRA. The preemptive peace offering. Before the blade for 3 centuries. Earth has been honored to be part of this august body. We have learned, much contributed where we could, and strive to be worthy members of this ancient institution. The elder nodded, appreciatively, his long tendrils swaying with the movement. Many representatives looked pleased with this appropriate display of difference. However, Jones continued, as we all know, the galaxy beyond council space faces increasing challenges. The Dresner incursion in the Cygnus arm has displaced billions. The resource collapse in the outer worlds has led to suffering on a scale not seen in millennia. Voxel felt his spines begin to glow again. Here it was the human tactic of using others' suffering as leverage. The Secret Discovery Section 47B of the Non-Intervention Protocols currently prohibits council members from providing military assistance to non-member worlds even in cases of humanitarian crisis. This was established with good reason, to prevent proxy wars and power grabs disguised as aid. She paused, her gaze sweeping the chamber when her eyes met Voxel. He saw something there that sent Akil through his exoskeleton, not aggression, not even determination. It was certainty. But what? If we could help without overstepping, what if a limited amendment could allow for defensive operations only with strict oversight from a council committee, lives saved, stability restored, and most importantly, a chance for those suffering worlds to see the benefits of eventual council membership? The chamber erupted in voices. The elder raised his appendages for silence, but the buzz continued. Voxel watched as representatives leaned toward each other, forming small clusters of conversation. The alliances were already visible, those supporting Earth and those opposed. This isn't just about military aid, Voxel whispered to LRA. This is about expanding human influence beyond council space. It's about creating a power base. But Sir LRA replied, her voice equally low. If that's true, why are the Arcturians supporting it? They have always been skeptical of human expansion. Voxel turned to look at the Arcturian delegation. Indeed, their lead representative, Ambassador Keel, was nodding along as Jones spoke. Something wasn't adding up, and so Jones was saying as the chamber quieted again, I present for your consideration Amendment 47B1, which would allow for defensive military operations in non-council space under 3 strict conditions: unanimous approval from the Security Council, invitation from the legitimate government of the world in question, and a clear humanitarian justification. She touched a control on the podium, and the text of the proposed amendment appeared on the display screens throughout the chamber. I now yield the floor for questions and debate, that with the sincere hope that we can find a path forward that honors both our commitment to non-intervention principles and our moral obligation to those suffering beyond our borders. As Jones stepped away from the podium, the chamber once again filled with the sounds of hundreds of species trying to speak. At once, the elder activated the formal speaking cue, and immediately dozens of names appeared on the list. Voxel's communication device vibrated against his exoskeleton. A private message from High Commander Drosix of Military Intelligence: urgent meet. In Secure Room 7, immediately bring no one with a muttered excuse. Tulra Voxel slipped out of his seat and made his way through the side corridors of the council hall. Secure Room 7 was Asmal's completely shielded chamber, used only for the most sensitive discussions. When he entered, Drosix was already there. His massive reptilian form hunched over a data terminal. "Close the door," Drosix said without looking up. His scaled fingers moving rapidly over the interface. Voxel complied. What's so urgent it couldn't? Wait until after the session. Jones is making her move too. It's not what you think, Drosix interrupted. Finally looking up, his yellow eyes were narrowed to slits, a sign of extreme stress in his species. The amendment is a distraction. It's a distraction. From what Droit activated a holographic display in the center of the room, it showed a sector of space far from Council territory near the Galactic Rim. 3 days ago, our long-range sensors detected an unusual energy signature. Here we thought it was an anomaly, perhaps a sensor malfunction. The display zoomed in, showing what appeared to be empty space. Then Drosix adjusted the settings, and suddenly Voxel could see it. A massive structure nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. What am I looking at? Voxel asked, moving closer to the hologram, a human installation completely cloaked. We only detected it because of a momentary power fluctuation. And it's not the only one. Drosix expanded the display, revealing dozens of Project Nightfall revealed. Similar signatures scattered throughout the sector. They have been building out there for years beyond our jurisdiction, beyond our monitoring capabilities. Voxel felt his exoskeleton grow cold. Building what exactly, we are not entirely sure. But based on the power readings and structural analysis, Drosix hesitated. They appear to be shipyards, massive ones. The implications hit Voxel like a gravitational wave. They are building a fleet outside Council space without oversight or restrictions. Yes, and based on our estimates, it's already larger than the combined naval forces of the Council's top 3 military powers. Voxel stared at the hologram, at the ghostly outlines of what could only be described as preparation for war, and the amendment would give them legal justification to move those ships into contested regions, to establish a presence wherever they claim there's a humanitarian need. Drosix shut down the hologram. By the time the Council realizes what's happening, it will be too late. Earth won't need to fight the Council. They will simply make it irrelevant. For the first time in his long career, Grand Admiral Voxel Tesserfelt, something he'd never expected to experience. Fear not of battle or death, but of obsolescence of watching. The careful order of millennia swept away by creatures who had just a few centuries ago been killing each other with chemical explosives and pointed metal. What do we do? He asked the question, sounding hollow even to his own hearing organs. Drosix's expression was grim. We have 2 options. Expose them now. Force a confrontation while we might still have the advantage, or accelerate Project Nightfall. Project Nightfall isn't ready. The test runs showed a 38% chance of catastrophic failure, and even if it works, it's our only option. If we want to avoid direct conflict, Drosix interrupted. We both know what would happen in an open war with Earth and its allies. Voxel turned away, his mind racing through scenarios, probabilities, outcomes, none of them good. How long do we have before the amendment comes to a vote? 3 days standard time. Jones has already secured enough support to force an expedited process. And how quickly can Project Nightfall be implemented? With emergency protocols, 2 days. But Voxel Drosix lowered his voice, even though they were alone in a secure room. You understand what this means? If we activate Nightfall, there's no going back. The Council as we know it might not survive the aftermath. Voxel looked back at where the hologram had been, imagining the hidden fleet waiting in the darkness. If we don't activate it, there might not be a council to survive at all. He straightened his posture. His decision may initiate the preparations. I will delay the vote. However I can. Androsix tell no one about what we have seen, not yet. As he left the secure room to return to the council chamber, Voxel couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching the beginning of the end of an era 23. 0 years of galactic order about Toby, undone by creatures who had barely mastered spaceflight before the council found them. The irony wasn't lost on him. The unified Galactic Council had feared Earth enough to try to destroy it, then feared it enough to try to control it. Now they feared it enough to consider destroying themselves just to stop its influence. One word, Earth, and the galaxy would never be the same. The council chamber had devolved into barely controlled chaos by the time Voxel returned. Species that had coexisted peacefully for millennia were now clustered into factions. Translators, working overtime as heated debates erupted throughout the vast amphitheater. Representative Jones had returned to Hearse at observing the pandemonium. With that uniquely human expression that Voxel had come to recognize as smugness, she caught his gaze across the chamber and offered a small nod, not a gesture of respect he knew, but acknowledgement that they both understood the real game being played. The session is temporarily adjourned for consultation periods, announced the elder, his melodic voice strained as he fought to be heard above the clamor. We will reconvene in 4 standard hours, as the Ambassador Okafor's warning representatives began filing out. LRA appeared at Voxel's side. Sir, there are rumors spreading.